In the previous lecture, we got started on the fundamentals of Webpack. In this lecture, we'll learn how to integrate Babel. Babel is a JavaScript compiler that will enable us to use JavaScript syntax that may not be available in some browsers. It'll make sure our code is backward compatible. Before we get into Babel, I briefly want to go over the 4 core concepts of Webpack. The concepts are called entry, output, loaders, and plugins. We learned about the first 2 in the previous lecture. The entry is the file where Webpack can start looking to build the bundle. We have a single entry point in our app, but we are allowed to pass in multiple entry points. The entry point file's responsibility is to list the dependencies required for our project. Webpack takes everything it finds and bundles everything together into as few files as possible. We can tell Webpack where to place the bundled files by setting the output. By default, it'll put the file in a directory called dist. We're free to change this location to wherever we like. Loaders and plugins are concepts we haven't gone over yet. Let's start with loaders. Webpack is limited to what it can understand. By default, it can understand JavaScript code. It doesn't understand HTML, CSS, or any other file type. Most applications are built with a combination of file types and code. Therefore, Webpack needs some help to process additional file types. This process is the job of a loader. Loaders are a way to help Webpack understand the various file types in our project. We'll be looking at how to use loaders in this lecture. The last concept is called plugins. Plugins allow us to extend the functionality of Webpack. We can use plugins to delete files, start a server, deploy our app, etc. Webpack's plugin system makes Webpack very flexible for developers. There's no limit as to what you can do with plugins. Now that we have an overview of the 4 concepts, let's check out Babel. Babel takes JavaScript to the next level. In the resource section of this lecture, I provide a link to the official Babel site. There are features in the JavaScript language that make it easier to perform specific tasks. The main issue with using the cutting-edge features of JavaScript is if browsers support those features. If the user is on an older browser, they may not be able to use the latest features of JavaScript. The app will break if that's the case. We want our applications to work on most devices. Babel resolves this issue by compiling our JavaScript code. The code it generates will be backward compatible. It's beneficial because we can have the best of both worlds. We can write JavaScript with the latest syntax features while also supporting older browsers. It's important to note that Babel and Webpack are 2 completely different tools. You can use Babel without Webpack and vice versa. However, these 2 tools work very well together. Babel is a modular library. It's not like most libraries where we download one module and we're good to go. It's split up into different modules. Depending on what we want, we have to download and install separate modules to get it to work. Every project has different needs. We need to decide what parts of Babel we'll need for our project. Usually, you will end up installing a minimum of 3 modules. The first module is the Babel core module. This module is the heart of Babel. This module contains the core functionality. It'll take care of reading your code and then compiling it into code that the browser can understand. The second module is the Babel loader module. If we want to use Webpack and Babel together, this module will be necessary. Since they're both different tools, we need a way to connect them. This module will help us with that. As its name implies, it's a loader for Webpack. We'll look at how we can use loaders later in this lecture. The last module will vary depending on what features we need. The core module takes care of the compiling. However, it does not determine what features we'd like to enable in the JavaScript language. We need to add a module that will pick the features we want to use. These modules are what Babel calls presets. Some presets will only compile ES 2015 code, others for ES 2016 and ES 2017. Luckily, Babel does provide a preset for some of the most common rules and features, so we'll be going with that one. In the resource section of this lecture, I provide a link to the list of presets available. Feel free to go through this list and see what works for you. The most popular and commonly used preset is the preset env. This preset is the one we'll be going with. It comes with everything we need. It's regularly updated with what's popular. Babel's team usually reviews it. It's considered the most stable and usable module out of them all. Let's get started with these modules. Switch back to your editor and open the command line. We're going to enter the following commands: npm install --save-dev at babel/core at babel/preset-env babel-loader. This installation may take a while. After the installation is complete, you can move on to the next lecture to learn how to configure Babel with Webpack.